They risked everything: their lives, their homes, their futures for one idea of freedom. This wasn't just a political act, it was a leap of faith. A moment when a group of ordinary men did something extraordinary, forever changing the course of history. How did a simple piece of paper become one of the most powerful symbols of liberty the world has ever known? This is the story of the birth of a nation, not on a battlefield, but in a quiet room, with the stroke of a quill pen. This is the story of the Declaration of Independence. The year is 1776. Imagine life in the 13 American colonies. For over a century, they had existed under the rule of the British Crown, separated by an ocean but bound by a common heritage and loyalty. Yet, the relationship was fraying. The air crackled with tension. London, burdened by debt from distant wars, began to impose a series of taxes on the colonists. The Stamp Act of 1765 required a tax on nearly every piece of printed paper, from legal documents to playing cards. It was met with fierce opposition. The colonists argued, no taxation without representation. They had no voice in the British Parliament, yet their wallets were being squeezed. The British government repealed the Stamp Act but didn't back down. More taxes followed, leading to moments of defiance like the Boston Tea Party in 1773, where colonists, disguised as Native Americans, dumped an entire shipment of British tea into the harbor. This act of protest was a point of no return. In response, Britain passed what the colonists called the Intolerable Acts, closing Boston's port and stripping Massachusetts of its self-governance. The message was clear: the colonies were to be brought to heel. But instead of breaking their spirit, these actions united them. Something had to be done. In the sweltering summer of 1775, delegates from the 13 colonies gathered in Philadelphia for the Second Continental Congress. They met in a stately brick building we now know as Independence Hall. At first, the goal wasn't independence. Many still hoped for reconciliation with King George III. But as the months dragged on, the pleas for peace were met with silence or further aggression. The idea of a complete break, once a radical whisper, grew into a determined roar. Among the delegates were brilliant minds and passionate patriots: the fiery John Adams of Massachusetts, the wise and worldly Benjamin Franklin of Pennsylvania, and the eloquent Thomas Jefferson from Virginia. In June 1776, a formal resolution for independence was proposed. The Congress knew that if they were to declare themselves a new nation, they needed to explain why to the world. They needed a document that would articulate their grievances and, more importantly, their ideals. The task of drafting this monumental text fell to a committee of 5, but the primary author was the 33-year-old Thomas Jefferson. For 17 days, Jefferson locked himself away, writing and rewriting by candlelight. He didn't invent new ideas. Instead, he drew upon centuries of Enlightenment philosophy from thinkers like John Locke, distilling their concepts of natural rights into something clear, powerful, and universal. He wrote of a world where all men are created equal, endowed with certain inalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He argued that governments exist only to protect these rights, and when a government fails to do so, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. These weren't just words, they were a revolutionary new blueprint for society. The draft was presented to Congress on June 28. For several days, the delegates debated every line, every word. It was a tense and difficult process. Passages condemning the slave trade were removed to appease Southern colonies, a compromise that would haunt the new nation for generations. But through it all, the core message of liberty remained intact. Finally, on July 2, the Continental Congress voted unanimously for independence. The colonies were, in effect, free. But the Declaration itself, the public announcement of this fact, was formally adopted 2 days later, on July 4, 1776. Imagine the atmosphere in that room. The summer heat was oppressive, but a different kind of fire burned within the delegates. As John Hancock, the president of the Congress, signed his name in large, bold script, he reportedly said, "The British ministry can read that name without spectacles." One by one, others followed. They knew what they were doing. This was an act of treason. By signing their names, they were pledging to each other their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. They were no longer British subjects. They were Americans, citizens of a brand new and certain republic. The declaration was read aloud in public squares and to the Continental Army, met with cheers, ringing bells, and bonfires. It was more than a legal document. It was a moral compass, a promise of what America could be. The Declaration of Independence didn't just create a new country, it ignited a fire that spread across the globe. Its powerful words that all men are created equal and have the right to self-governance became a rallying cry for oppressed people everywhere. It inspired the French Revolution just a few years later. In the 19th and 20th centuries, leaders of independence movements from Vietnam to Venezuela, and civil rights advocates right here at home, would quote Jefferson's prose to demand their own freedom and equality. The document's ideals have been a constant challenge to America itself, pushing the nation to live up to its founding promise. The struggle to extend its rights to all people, to end slavery, to grant women the vote, to ensure civil rights for every citizen has been a central theme of American history. It reminds us that the pursuit of a more perfect union is an ongoing journey. Today, visitors from all over the world come to Washington, D.C. to see the original document. Its ink faded, but its message as vibrant as ever. It stands as a testament to the idea that a government's power comes from the consent of the governed, a principle that has become the bedrock of modern democracy. As we look back on that summer of 1776, we see more than just a historical event. We see an act of profound imagination. Before there was a nation, there was an idea. Before there were citizens, there was a dream of what it meant to be free. The signers of the Declaration couldn't know if they would succeed. They couldn't know if their fragile new country would even survive. But they dared to imagine a different future, a world based not on the divine right of kings, but on the inherent rights of humanity. Freedom was not just declared, it was imagined. And that imagination changed the world. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back in time. If you found this story inspiring, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more explorations of the moments that shaped our world. We'll see you in the next one.